How would you like to rank #1 on Google without using SEO? Hey, this is Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Business podcast. And in this episode, I'm speaking with Lacy Boggs from lacyboggs.com. Now, Lacy has over 9 years of content creation experience. She has a world-class team who crush it at content creation. But more importantly, they adopt and implement content creation strategies that actually make money. In this podcast episode, Lacy and I talk about how to actually write for the human first, okay? And how you can get ranked on Google, top of Google, when you write for the human first. We also talk about what a bad content strategy looks like versus a good content strategy. And we break down that good content strategy and how you can actually have just one great article that can convert, build leads, and make money, even if you are just blogging and even if you don't have your own products to sell, even if you're just running an ad site or an affiliate site, how you can win without having to create too much content, stressing yourself out, and not actually getting a great result from it. We also talk about how you can turbocharge the traffic on your site with ads. Yes, for an ad revenue site and for an affiliate site. And then we talk about how to write for your audience, how to find out what your customer language actually is by using these different tools and using these different resources to ensure that you create a great piece of quality content. This podcast episode has been such a delight. You're absolutely going to love it. Lacy shares so many great content marketing value bombs. Now, before we get stuck into this episode, I want to tell you that this podcast is not the only way I can help you for free. I have my due diligence framework, which a lot of people have been raving about. So many people in the industry are using to buy their first website business. And it takes all the guesswork out of buying an online business. It includes questions you need to ask about the business, questions you need to ask the seller and the broker. So to get that, go to buyingonlinebusinesses.com/free resources. And there's some other awesome free resources on that page too. Let's get stuck into the episode. Today's episode is brought to us by Niche Website Builders, which is a company a few of my clients are using and have used for content creation and link building services. They do everything from start to finish. So from keyword research all the way to uploading your completed article for you. We've also had Bob members buy ready-made affiliate sites built by Niche Website Builders. So if you're looking to outrank your competitors' content and build better backlinks, Niche Website Builders and I have a special deal for you. Head to nichewebsite.builders/Bob. I'll put a link in the show notes for you. But again, that's www.nichewebsite.builders/Bob. Do you want to start investing in websites but don't want to drop $20,000 on your first investment? Check out Odie's, where you can buy premium age domains to build a website on and add Odie's done for you affiliate site package to help you grow your website and get seen. Instead of buying a crummy website that's been built to sell with no authority, buy a premium age domain with built-in authority, great SEO, and fresh quality content for your website. Head to odys.global to check out their great deals. That's odys.global. Link will be in the description too. Lacy, thank you so much for coming on the Buying Online Businesses podcast. Welcome.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I was saying to you before we hit the record buttons on this, when I found out about you and what you're doing, I went to your site and I looked through your site and I got excited. And then as I read more, I got more excited. And then I was like, yes, I've got so many questions. How are we going to fit it all in? But let's just try and stick with the golden nuggets for this one. Now, a lot of people listening to this podcast, Lacy, are, they're looking at buying an online business. Usually a content website is their first type of business they're looking at buying because it's less of a learning curve. So blogs. And what everybody learns when we're looking at, niche content websites is basically how to create a blog post that's just highly optimized for SEO to get ranked one, top of Google. However, I know that there's so many downfalls and so many things they can be missing out on that they're not harnessing in terms of like relationship building and, journeys and all these different things that can come from good content. And I know that you get a lot of clients that come to you that like, hey, can you help me with my blog and my content? like, I'm sure you've got some pet peeves around like what people do either incorrectly or not so well with their content. So what would you see is like one of the most common thing that people do that sort of is a bit of a pet peeve for you with their content creation?
Sure. I think the biggest one that I see is when people are not thinking enough about their audience when they're writing the content.
Yes.
And so, something I say often is that we write for humans first and Google second, because even, everything, we can do all the things in our power to rank on Google, but if it's not great, people are going to hit that back button right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to write for the human first. And that means considering what does that ideal reader need? What's their journey? What are they actually coming to your website for? It can be very easy to just say, oh, I'm going to write some how-to articles maybe because that's what people are searching for. But what's going to get them to click a second thing on your website and the third thing and come back and make you the go-to expert? Because that's when you're really going to start building up an audience that's loyal to you and that will come back over and over and over again. And believe me, that's very attractive to advertisers when you have a loyal returning audience.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you said right for the human first, because like not only are they the content's ranked quite high and they come to it and they can leave, but when you do right for the human, that second and third click, what that actually does, I think for people that don't understand, is like when you have a content site, it's not just about getting people to one page to click an ad like that. First, we need to build a trust bridge, if you want to call it that, right? And build a relationship with those people. And how can we gain trust? It's like trust is gained over time. We know that, right? And a relationship is built over time. And, I can have a relationship with somebody that I've known for a year and I see them once a week, right? And then I could have a relationship with somebody that I've got a relationship with them for a year, but I see them once a month. Obviously, the person that I, see once a week, I'm going to have a far better relationship with them because I'm spending that time with them. And if we relate that time we spend with the person in person to like how long we spend, on a piece of content, that trust bridge is built so much quicker in a shorter time frame, the more they consume our content, right? So what 100%. Are some of those things that we, can make our content better by writing for the human?
Yeah, great question. So we have to kind of think about what is the journey that they're on? What do they actually need out of the post? Are they there for information? Are they there for entertainment? Are they there for inspiration? Especially when we're looking to drive traffic, there are a lot of tried and true blog post templates that you can use that people have used over and over again. The how-to is a good example, or a list post, where you're listing out, here are 18 different things you could do in this situation. But think about what can you do to take that the extra step to make it that much more useful for the human, because Google's getting smarter every day, right? And those algorithms are getting smarter every day, and they can tell when somebody spends more time there, when it's referenced more often, when it's visited more often, right? And that's going to improve your search ranking as well. So just slowing down and having a thought about like what's actually going to make this more useful to the human being. So just as an example, if you're doing a list post, let's say we're listing out my top 15 podcasts that I listen to for this, that, or the other thing. What's going to make that actually even more useful for the person? Is it just listing the podcast, or is it like giving it your favorite episode, or talking about why that one would be good for a particular person to listen to, right? It's going that extra step a little bit deeper. That's going to not only help you engage with your audience and build that trust factor, but it's also going to be better for Google, right? Because the longer if somebody clicks on it and stays there, that signals their little web browsers that your quality content and quality engagement is really the holy grail in content marketing, right? It's not just the click, but we want time spent on the page, the second click, the third click, and so on.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good to hear it. Like I've got somebody who joined my mastermind who bought a content website, wants to scale it. Quickly worked out a strategy to get more scale, revised one of the posts, and he's in the niche of the business. Like he likes the niche of the business he bought, which is great. But when he started to revise the piece of content that he created, he could see that the previous piece of content was just written by somebody who was just taught to go away and do a bit of research about that subject and put something together. Whereas he actually sat in the shoes, or, put on the shoes of that audience and really understood where they're at in their journey, or like what to do, how to get to, this from A to B, and wrote from that point of view, rather than just like a cookie cutter method of here's the quick information that I perceive that you'd want to know without being in their shoes. And I think there's so many content creators out there, or not just content creators, but so many people will buy a website business, a content website, a blog, and then hire a writer to do the work. But in their SOP won't be understand the niche, understand where they're at.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, and this is, I'm going to have to get on a soapbox here for just a second, if you forgive me, because there are so many services I'm seeing right now that are trying to provide content at scale, right? So they're trying to provide that writer at a super cheap, affordable price for the business owner, which is great. Like, I don't have any problem, like, capitalism. Okay, that works. But the problem with that is that when you're paying somebody a very low price for a piece of content, you're going to get what you pay for to some extent, right? Because that means the writer has to work that much harder. They have to write more pieces to pay their rent and put food on their table, which means they're going to do it as quickly as possible. So they're going to go on Google, read the first 1 or 2 or 3 results for whatever your topic is, try to synthesize all that into something new. I'm not saying they're going to plagiarize, but they're just going to do the bare minimum of research, pop it into a new document, and give you that as a blog post. And technically, yes, that's a brand new blog post, but is it taking it to that next level? Probably not. So if you are going to hire a writer and you want to build that trust and really be a leader in your niche as a content provider, you have to be willing to pay a little bit more so you get a better product.
Yeah, for sure. The condensing like the top 3 articles and putting it into your own article, and then highly optimizing that for SEO, it can be a piece of content on your site, but the level of performance and how much traffic you get from that may not be exceptional. For example, this person in the mastermind, he's like, cool, this is ranking here at this level, and it's getting X amount of traffic. And he was like, I'm going to recreate this. As he recreated it, within like a week or 2, he was double the traffic. He didn't actually highly optimize. Like the previous post was optimized for SEO, but he didn't really optimize it. His new one, the revised version for SEO, what it did is he revised it for the human and then doubled the traffic, which is just so awesome to be able to talk about on this podcast episode, because most people like SEO, that's what's going to get me the rank. And that's just drummed into everybody in the industry. Right. Whereas like, hang on, also the algorithm has this thing called, time on page and bounce rate. And they reward people or reward articles that people stay longer on, which is technically SEO as well, but it comes from writing for the user, right? Exactly.
And I think that's important to remember too, is, a lot of times SEO, people think it's just a numbers game. Which keywords are going to get me the most traffic for the least amount of competition? Well, okay. But think about the longer tail keywords that might not have as much traffic, might not have as many searches, but dang, when those people land on your thing and they find exactly what they're looking for, they're going to stay there. They're going to be loyal to you. They're going to trust, right? So a lot of times in my world, I'm not as interested in ranking number 1 for some really broad keyword. I'm much happier helping my client rank for a smaller long tail keyword, but those people are exactly who they want it, right? It's that, again, it's a higher quality engagement as opposed to more engagements.
Yeah. People are astounded when you're in a certain niche that is a very tight niche, and there's not too many people. They're astounded with like the conversion rates on everything, like email, sales, whatever it is. Right. You're like, well, hang on, this is beating all the benchmarks, but it's because less people, but more quality people that are like
Higher
heavily
quality.
bought in.
Exactly.
So I wanted to ask you about content creation without a strategy. Like this can be good strategy and there can be bad strategies. The strategies that most people learn are the ones that they learn from cookie cutter courses that people have built and regurgitated, not through experience, or they're getting it from information, which is free information. And free information, let's face it, is free. You get what you pay for. You said that earlier.
What you pay for, yeah.
Through blogs and stuff like that. So I know that before we jumped on, you talked about one of your clients who, you helped her and she's in like, sort of like the health niche, right?
Yeah.
And she, you created a few articles for her. You got ranked number 1 and you had a bit of a strategy around how you would get more traffic and more quality traffic. What does a bad strategy look like compared to a good strategy that you may have used for this client?
Sure. Well, so a bad strategy is no strategy at all. That's not a good one. So don't go there. I do see that a lot where people are just like, I'll just write whatever I think of. It sounds like your audience are much more focused and trying to, understand that they need to have a strategy. So, I think another bad strategy would be like, picking those really broad keywords and trying to rank for something. So she was she's a health coach who helps people with IBS. And so like, even just trying to rank for IBS would be very hard. You're at that point, you're fighting against like Mayo Clinic and Wikipedia that's defining it. Right. So it would have been a really poor strategy to try to build those really big keywords for her. What we did instead was we tried very specific keywords to the type of coaching she did, which was helping people do an elimination diet, right? So we would write things about like, I'm trying to remember, it's been a minute, but things like, can you have X ingredients on an elimination diet? How do you reintroduce foods on this particular FODMAPs, IBS elimination diet, right? So these were very long tail keywords, but they did really well. And then she would go back and the ones that we could see were doing well, that she was getting good conversion rates on, she started running Google ads to those as well, because she was sending highly targeted traffic to those blog posts that we already had demonstrated were doing well with her ideal audience.
So cool. So let's break this down even further. Long tail keyword was doing really well. So you've kind of got proof of concept before you started to build the fire. The fire's already burning before you added fuel, which is the ads.
Right.
Is it just search ads for similar keywords that just got the ad on the top of the search bar that push more traffic to them? What was that sort of strategy?
That was her strategy. Yes. Just to kind of have adjacent keywords and send traffic to those particular articles, rather than having an ad that was like buy now or even opt in for my thing. This was driving traffic straight to articles, which then in her case usually had an opt-in at the bottom to join her email list. She also did really well with those articles on Pinterest because of the niche she was in. A lot of people are searching for food and diet related information on Pinterest. So those same articles, when we did those, we could use the same keywords in the description in Pinterest, and those did really well as well.
I'm so glad we're talking about this, because like breaking it all down is going to help people sort of understand the full strategy here. I haven't run ads for my business in like the last year, right? And we only started experimenting lately, and it's grown through content marketing, which is, to not run paid ads for like a course sort of business is like unheard of in online business, right? It's like you don't have a business unless you're running paid ads. But it is because of a strategy that worked. Now, the strategy that I see similar to what I'm doing, different type of content, obviously, but I'm so glad that we're talking about running ads to a written article, but it only works because there's a back end attached to it, right? You can see that the money spent on ads is going to get X result. So I'm sure that through this strategy, she's testing different call to actions on that piece of content. And it's not ads to try and sell people straight away. It's ads to like, hey, be my friend. And then I'm going to build this relationship over time through like email content.
Yes.
So was that her strategy, to get people traffic to the site, win them over with an awesome article to then email? And then she had some good email content marketing as well. Is that what she did?
Yeah. So, it's a whole ecosystem at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got all the different pieces. But yes, so the ad would drive to a piece of content that was solving a particular problem. Like, for example, how do I reintroduce foods after I've done an elimination diet?
Mm-hmm.
And then she'd have this really in-depth article. And then there would probably be a call to action that was like, if you'd like this as a PDF, click here to download it. And you'll also join my email list, right? So then they're giving her a little freebie, which also builds that trust, right? We were talking about earlier. How do you build trust? Well, giving somebody something valuable for free builds trust. They get to know, like, and trust you. And then they're on her email list, and she would generally repurpose what was on the blog in the email. So, if she's writing an article about how to do an elimination diet, then the email that week would be also about that. So, and then it's all leading to, she sold courses and had coaching. That was her end result there. But even if you have a business that's driven by advertising on site, you can also sell ads in your newsletter. You can also sell ads, do affiliate marketing through email newsletters. So there's still a lot of money in a list, even if your blog is the content is the product, so to speak. Yeah,
exactly. Like, I have 2 guests that are coming on very soon that are huge in affiliate marketing, and they create content, but how they make their money is through affiliate marketing via email, and they are doing big stuff. Whereas people are thinking very close to home in terms of, I need to make money as soon as possible. As soon as somebody comes to my site, let me choke them and like get the money out of them. Right? Like, with their affiliate marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Which is
you have to build up that relationship first, because especially think about it this way, with an affiliate marketing strategy, you're actually loaning your credibility to the person that you're affiliating for, right? So you have to have the credibility in the first place in order to make that work. The audience has to trust you in order for, when you say, hey, my friend is selling this thing and it's really great, then they trust your recommendation, right? But you have to build up the trust first with you. Otherwise, it's just like spam at that point. Why do I care? If I don't trust you, I don't trust your recommendation, I won't buy the thing you're saying I should buy.
Yeah. So it's crazy. People are just creating content for the sake of getting traffic, but they're not.
That's not the end game.
But they're so good at getting traffic, but they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy? It's like trying to make 1 million friends and seeing them once a year or calling them once a year. It's just like, what do you've got no real connection. You got no fulfillment out of that. Like, you're not harnessing the power of it.
Right.
It's scary. And next, I also want to pivot to like, you might have another soapbox to get on here. I usually do. It's around quantity versus quality. And so there's a certain thing that we have, and I notice this when I go away and watch YouTube videos. I'm obsessed with surfing, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos that are around surfing. And I really like to watch the ones that are only like a few days old, right? Otherwise, I'm like, this is old. I don't, not really.
Old news, sure.
Oh, it's old news, right? So like, I like to watch the most current things, and I like to consume the most current content. So there is this aspect of us as human beings wanting to get the latest piece of content, right? Or the latest thing, which forces us to have to keep continuing creating content, because, I mean, yes, we can build a business with one article, put ads to it, email lists, harness the email list and sell, right? Which is the best route, I believe, to go and focus on that first before more. So guys, think about that when you're listening to this podcast. But then we do have this aspect of like, let's create more content to like reach people in different ways and stuff like that.
Sure.
Talk to me about your approach of quantity versus quality.
Yeah. So this will be unsurprising to you, but I'm always going to advocate quality over quantity. However, there are different business models, right? So if you're watching surfing videos, for example, and they're reviewing products, those have to be up to date, right? If they're telling you about the latest thing, those absolutely have to be current, and you just have to keep producing it, because that's what that business model is, right? If, however, you're doing something that's more evergreen, right? There are tricks, of course, in the blogging world where you can take the dates off so that it doesn't show up with a date on there, so it doesn't feel like old news. If it's an evergreen topic that's continuously useful, then maybe it's about not so much creating new content on something newsworthy or whatever the latest happening is, but rather trying to get people who are at a slightly different point in their customer journey, or that have a slightly different interests, things like that. Then it might be about creating a quality piece of content that's evergreen, like you were talking about that one article that can run your business. Well, great. How do we clone that for the person who's just slightly different point in their journey, and so on? So those sorts of things, I would much rather focus on the quality content over quantity, because quantity, it's just going to put you in debt forever, right? Those YouTube guys that you love to watch, they are in continual content debt because they have to keep putting it out, or their audience is going to dry up, because their audience is you. You want the latest thing because they've given you that latest thing. They have painted themselves into a corner. They got to keep doing that, right? Whereas if we have a model that's more like, let me give you a really solid evergreen, this information is never going to expire article, then you don't have to worry so much about feeding the beast. You can focus on creating, okay, well, I've served this small niche of my audience. Now I want to serve this small niche with a similar high quality evergreen piece of content.
Yeah. This is what I do with my business. Is I have one phenomenal playlist. Guys, if you're listening, you haven't gone away and checked this, I have a YouTube playlist on how I made my first 100 grand buying websites. Go away and watch it. It's got everything you need to know to get started doing this. But then we have just like other pieces of the content that are like supporting documents for that, which is what we release, like this podcast episode, for example.
Right. Well, think of it as kind of a hub and spoke model, right? So if you imagine a wheel, your hub is your highest quality piece of content, the thing you really want to drive people to. Maybe that's where you have your best call to action, or that's the thing that has proven to convert the best over time. And then everything else are the spokes that lead to the hub. And so that might be your podcast. It might be, I don't know, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, that's driving traffic one way or another back to that hub. So for you, I would say your hub is probably that playlist, right? Because that's your core content. And then everything else is spokes that are driving traffic over time back to that playlist.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me and for others to be able to create great supporting documents and other pieces of content, which are these spokes, we really need to know, like, I'm in a great position that I know my audience so well because I've been there and I just work with those people. Whereas there's other people that have bought a content website, it's in a niche that they don't really know. And they're like, how do I train my writers, or how do I become able to, or learn to speak the customer language, to learn how to put myself in their shoes? What are some of the things that you would teach somebody that's like, I want to create better content for the human? Like, what would you mention to them to do?
Yeah. So the very first exercise that's going to be super helpful is to sort of map out your customer journey. So where do they start when they don't even realize they have the problem that you solve? And then how do they move all the way to being ready to purchase a solution? Whether that's an ad that you're running on your site or something that you sell, right? So what does that journey look like? And one of my favorite examples of how to do this is actually from Airbnb. They hired a storyboard artist, like from Hollywood, and they literally storyboarded. They drew pictures. They storyboarded out the customer journey when they were getting started. Like, why does somebody rent a room off Airbnb, and that got them really into the mindset of the person doing it. So take some time, really think about that. What are they Googling before they even know they have a problem? And then what are they looking at? What's every stage in between, right? So that's a really good place to start. Another super secret, not that secret place that I like to go is every niche is going to have books on Google, right? Yep. So go look up some books on Google in your niche and look at the comments. And I especially like the 1 and 2 star reviews, because not because I'm feeling, evil toward the author of the book, but because that's going to reveal where the gaps are. So the reviews that say, this was a pretty good book, but it really didn't go into XYZ, or I was hoping it would tell me this, but it didn't actually go into that. Aha, that's the gold. That's where you're going to find the places that people are missing. They're looking for information and not finding it. And so that's a really great place to go sort of data mine and then use their exact words, use the customer's exact words and regurgitate it back to them. So this could also be in your own comments. If you're buying a site that has a backlog of blog posts and there's comments on there, go back, look through them. What are people asking? Where are they asking for more information? What do they like? What don't they like? And actually use their words and regurgitate. That's a copywriting trick that never gets old, because then that's when you get people leaving comments. It's like, oh my God, it was like you were in my brain.
Yeah. Well, they just took the raw data and used it. I think that's awesome. Another way to add to that, and this won't be for everybody that's listening, because they may not have an email list, but those that do, is submit, say, hey, I want to create better content for you guys. Yeah. Can you fill out this 3-question survey and let me know, what's your biggest frustration in this niche? And they can tell you, they literally will tell you what you should be creating.
Yeah. And then you can look for patterns. And again, use their own words, regurgitate it back to them in their own words as much as possible, because that's really where they'll be like, oh yeah, that's me. That's the right answer for me.
Speaking my language.
That's right.
Yeah. Lacy, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can we send people to your blog, or if you've got a free resource to check out what you're doing? Because guys, you should check out our site. It's really well written.
Thank you. Yeah, you can go to lacyboggs.com and the blog is there. There's 9 years, I guess, of back posts at this point. So there's lots of information. If you want more about, for example, the customer journey, just put customer journey into the search box on there and so blog posts will come up on that. But that's the best place to find me. And I also hang out on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find me there as well.
Cool, guys. I'll be putting the links to that in the show notes. For those of you guys that are getting into content, wanting to buy a content website, or you have buddies that are wanting to get into buying a content website or even own a content website, make sure you do them a massive favor. Yes, it's a massive favor to me in the podcast. We're going to help grow this thing and get the message out to more people to be better business owners. But share this podcast episode with them so they can get the golden nuggets that we talked about in how to rank on number 1 on Google without focusing on SEO, how to actually harness a great relationship with people in your content or using your content, and how to build a business without thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of content and being actually in content debt. And you can do it with just one. So please make sure you share this episode with them. Thanks so much for listening. I'll speak to you on the next one.
Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.